Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to see everybody out this bright and sunny, cold morning, which I which I really love. Um, I'm gonna call on our chairman, um, Clay Perkle, if he would, if he'd open us up with a prayer.
Pray with me, if you will. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we are taught in all things to give thanks. Lord, I want to thank you for the rain. Thank you for the sunshine. I want you to thank you for each person that's gathered here. Lord, I pray for great wisdom. Lord, grant us wisdom as we engage in matters that affect this state. And Lord, help us to be servant leaders for you. In your name that I pray. Amen.
Thank you. I think we all need to keep the folks out in Texas and the Midwest that's having the extreme cold. I know they've lost lots of crops and lots of cattle and lots of issues out there. And I'm so glad it hasn't dipped so far here in Georgia. So anyway, I'm glad everybody's here this morning. Thank you, committee members, for being here, and I'm excited to have our friends at the UGA. I thought it'd be a very appropriate time if they would come this morning, sort of give us, this committee, a little update on what things are going on in the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. And so I think most of you, all of you, should have a packet in front of you. And so I'm going to ask my good friend Laura Perry Johnson to come, and she's got also Dr. John Salazar, Associate Professor of Ag and Applied Economics. And Laura, just go ahead and give us a program here this morning. Then committee meeting, as you see, we got a couple of bills that we'll hear later on.
It is such a pleasure to be here and see so many friends and some new faces too. So thank you so much for the invitation. Our dean, Nick Place, could not be here today. He's going to be in Atlanta tomorrow, so hopefully y'all will see him. But John and I are very excited to be with you today, and we'll jump right into the information we've got for you. There's a packet that I put in front of you that has some of this information. So if you're joining us online, Lee will have this packet for you, but you can also see some of this information in the slides. First of all, I just want to thank y'all. We were so grateful for the money that was returned in the amended budget. That really will help us continue to do the great work that we do for the people of the state, and just don't want to miss the opportunity to thank you for that. If you're not familiar with the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, we are the second oldest college at the University of Georgia, and we have three missions: teaching, research, and extension. There's an associate dean for each of those. Joe Broder is in charge of teaching, Alan Moore research, and I'm responsible for cooperative extension. In our teaching programs, we do great. I love to say I'm a product of that. I have 3 degrees from the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences, so I'm a little inbred, but think it's a wonderful place. We have right now about 1,500 undergraduates and about 625 graduate students. Our graduates are greatly in demand. We have the highest placement to graduate in pre-professional schools like pre-med, pre-vet, pre-law. So our students do very well. Biological sciences is our largest major. Many people don't know that we have programs that range everything from journalism to science to the traditional animal science, row crops, that type of thing. The research programs are also doing very well. Last year, our research income was up 30%. We brought in around $53 million in external funding for our research programs. We are the young faculty we have hired, a lot of them thanks to the funds that you appropriated to us. They are quite bright and doing great. So they are really doing a good job at bringing in that grant income and bringing in a lot of graduate students, master's and doctoral students, as well as postdoctoral students. An area that we are really focused on in research and extension is precision agriculture. That's very important to this state. So we spend a lot of time on that, and we've been working to ramp up our resources in that area. One of the challenges we have is our infrastructure and trying to maintain our square footage and just keep up modern lab space and facilities so that these personnel can do their best work. In cooperative extension, we have 3 program areas: agriculture and natural resources, but we're also responsible for family and consumer sciences and 4-H youth. Extension is in every county in Georgia. So if you didn't know that, I want to be sure that you go to your local county office and meet your county extension professionals. Hopefully you already know them and work with them quite well. We are divided into 4 districts, and you can see that on the map, and you can look us up very easily by just Googling your county name and extension. Over this past year, we have spent a whole lot of time dealing with COVID-related issues. When the pandemic hit, one of the first things that was asked of us is that we just help get good information out about health and hygiene, exactly what this virus was, how you explain it to your workers, that type of thing. We've been doing things like hand washing for kids for years, but all of a sudden it was important to teach that to adults too. So you see the wash your paws graphic up there. Immediately, we started working with our friends at the Department of Ag and Georgia Grown and in the ag industry to try to figure out how we help farmers with the disrupted food supply. So we did a lot of connecting people that had products to sell with consumers that wanted to buy those products. So you see some of the mobile farmers markets, some of the graphics that we created. And right in the middle of that slide, one of my favorite pictures is at my home food bank, Colquitt County Food Bank, and that's Sam Watson's sweet little girl delivering some Chelsea produce. So everyone got in on the action. And throughout that time, our ag and family and consumer science and 4-H programs have gone on for the past year. A lot of them look differently than they did previously. So you can see we did a lot of online programming. A lot of things went virtual. It's interesting, a lot of our youth programs had to go completely virtual as schools were shut down. Now, we just did a study that surveyed teachers over the past year, and we found that while they prefer in-person learning, the kids' knowledge increased exactly the same amount with the digital programming as it did with the in-person learning. So that's something Matthew's real familiar with from his days in 4-H. But you can see an example of an outdoor soil sample drop box. So we did a lot of creative things to keep municipal water samples and soil samples going. Down at the bottom, you can see that was one of our virtual 4-H programs. We got Kirby Smart and Jennifer Nettles in on the action to congratulate the kids. So we did a lot of things differently, but that picture in the middle where you see a county agent out in a cotton field with one of the producers, we did a lot of things just like we always do, those one-on-one farm visits for troubleshooting and that type of thing. One of the things we really focused on this past couple of years, because we had 2 hurricanes in a row, there was a lot of rural stress out there, a lot of economic and financial heartache. And so we had been partnering with the medical community and our friends in Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities to pilot a Growing Stronger rural campaign to help farmers with rural stress. We actually last year at some of the farm production meetings, we had healthcare providers come in and actually do health assessments of the farmers in kind of a friendly venue where they felt, they felt like that was a safe place to do that. You can see lately we've been working a lot on vaccine education. There's a poster talks about your essential, getting fact-based information out about vaccines. We are also partnering with our friends in agriculture, and I hope you've seen the Protect Your Peach campaign for vaccine awareness. That's a clever graphic that our friends at Department of Ag came up with, and we're all trying to share on social media. So those are some of the things that we're doing right now. So just to let you know, over the past year, it's been very challenging. We've done a lot of things differently, but I just had to turn in a budget report to the provost at the university. And in the first paragraph, I wrote that, while this has been a really challenging year and I really don't want to have another one like this in a long time, we are a stronger organization today than we were a year ago because we've learned how to do a lot of things differently. In 2019, we had 2.1 million face-to-face contacts with educational programming. And even with our disrupted last year in the last 10 months of the year, we reached 1.76 million, which is basically the same thing as 2.1 in 12 months. So you can see that our publication downloads went up dramatically over the past year. And obviously we're doing a lot more digital programming, but you can see we're still doing those one-on-one farm visits and a lot of the things that we're known for in cooperative extension. So on behalf of the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences and all three of our program areas, I just thank you for your support. If you ever have questions or if you have a need, reach out to us. Maybe it's not something that we're the experts in, like vaccine, but we can partner with our friends at the local level, and our local network is in every county, so it's very easy for us to get information out. So that kind of concludes the overview. And next, I'd like to ask John to come up. John is our Director of Hospitality and Industry Management. It's a new major for us, a fast growing major. He's also an expert in tourism. And this year at our Ag Forecast meeting, we featured some of his research. And I think you'll really appreciate seeing the bright outlook for agritourism and the rural economy. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that introduction. Chairman, Ag Committee members, I greatly appreciate the being able to be here today to present to you some of the fine work, be part of this team to present to you some of the fine work we've been doing at University of Georgia. I'm extremely proud to be part of the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. I've only been at UGA. I'm in my second year, and I'm learning a lot from my wonderful role models, as well as everybody in the state of Georgia also. As Laura had mentioned, I am the coordinator of the Hospitality and Food Industry Management Program. And excuse me for a second as I take off my mask. Things happen. I'm in the Hospitality and Food Industry Management Program in the Department of Agriculture and Applied Economics. So I'm in the department where I have a lot of great and bright colleagues I'm working with to really impact the agricultural and applied economic needs of the state of Georgia. As Laura had mentioned, I did a presentation at the Ag Forecast regarding agritourism, and just give you a little bit of insight here in terms of agritourism and its relevance to rural economic development. In 2019, Georgia hosted approximately hosted visitors that spent over $32 billion in the state of Georgia. Those expenditures contributed directly to about 287,000 jobs within the state. Now, tourism at the community level is really a private-public collaboration among businesses, residences, and other organizations, which can provide a significant economic contribution at that local level, but also provide a distinct experience to these visitors in Georgia. And we all know that tourism is extremely important part of the Georgia economy. And of course, during every recession, it gets elevated, right, in terms of its relevance to the state economy. Well, agritourism is extremely important to us because it really provides that its distinct experience to the visitors coming to Georgia. And in 2020 and currently in 2021, we are working in collaboration with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, as well as multiple destination marketing organizations throughout the state, which stretch from North Georgia all the way down to the coastal empire. And what we've been doing is looking at the impact of the pandemic on Georgia travel. And what we've found out about Georgia travelers and future Georgia travelers is about 6 in 10 are motivated Georgia travelers that are seeking that rural experience. So they're looking to get into those rural communities. Almost half of Georgia visitors say that farmers markets and agritourism opportunities are important when choosing a travel and leisure destination. Approximately 30% of those surveyed, and this is a national survey we've conducted, say that agritourism, trails, farms, barns, and orchards are also important when traveling for recreation and leisure purposes. So in the general marketplace, we are seeing a demand for that rural tourism, agritourism experience for the state of Georgia. Now that's nice from a marketing perspective. Marketing people love to hear that. But let me give you a little bit more of a background about the economics behind this. We have 72 counties in the state of Georgia, which are typically lined up with the urban markets. However, we also have 87 counties in the state of Georgia that can be considered as rural that are not aligned with the urban markets. And when we look at the 2019 visitor expenditures, we had about $3 billion spent in those urban markets. And that comes out to about $34 million in average spending per rural county of those 87 counties. That's a lot of money. That's a nice chunk of change for those communities. What we've seen over time is that hotel occupancies have actually increased in those rural communities in the state of Georgia, almost 4% since 2015. Our UGA farm gate data affirms what we've been seeing on the hotel occupancy increase, showing a 6.9% increase from 2015 to 2018. So having a value in 2018 of $70.3 million growing from $65.7 million in value from 2015. So we have this growth in hotel occupancy, as well as, of course, UGA's own farm gate value. But here's where the rubber meets the road as far as employment is concerned. When we look closely at the rural markets, specifically those 87 counties, 8% of the employment in those 87 counties is aligned to the core of what hospitality and tourism is, and that's accommodation and food services. So when we look at accommodation and food services, we talk about this in the industry from whether it's general tourism throughout the United States, a state effort, or a county effort. Accommodation and food services typically is the largest employment pool in the tourism industry, and that exists at the rural community as well. 8% of total employment in these 87 counties is tied to accommodation and food. Lastly, the tax collections related to the travel and tourism industry in the rural counties. Here's an interesting picture. In 2019, the rural communities collected $314 million in tourism-related taxes. That lessened the household tax burden in those 87 counties by $435. That's an important part to understand about the economic contribution about agritourism. Now, what's the pandemic done? It's created havoc for the entire state of Georgia, whether it is rural or urban. From a statewide perspective, what we see is that the accommodation and food sector employment, we anticipate about 27% drop off in accommodation and food sector employment throughout the entire state, 28.2% occupancy decrease in the urban market. But if you look at the slides in front of you, what you'll see is that the rural market is only anticipated to decline about 15% compared to last year. Now, that's an important picture as we move forward and try to see what 2020 looks like ahead of us. When we continue to do this survey, in fact, we have 2 more waves left in 2021. What we're finding from the results of our second wave is that travelers to Georgia are more comfortable, confident in going out into their community as well as traveling outside their community. So we see consumer sentiment actually evolving here, people feeling more comfortable in traveling during the pandemic. This is actually being echoed by a lot of the national surveys that we're seeing out there by the major tourism researchers. What we see for the spring and summer Travel is expected to increase according to the public sentiment we're seeing compared to 2020. So people are starting to feel more confident about planning for the spring and summer travel season. So what does this mean for the rural community, agritourism operators, business owners, farmers that have, on-site visit from tourists? It's really nice to be here presenting to you all because many of you serve on multiple committees, whether it's here or whether it's in natural resources, but also some of you have served on the local level as well at your local chambers of commerce, okay, or local rotaries or Main Street organizations. The agritourism industry and the rural economic development folks really have to focus on working with the designated marketing organizations, such as those chambers of commerce. And that collaboration is extremely important here. What we're seeing is this growing confidence and sentiment. We're also seeing that future travel uncertainty is declining. Of course, everything hinges on a vaccine, and we hope that gets distributed effectively and efficiently throughout the state. As well as to the markets that really focus on coming to Georgia. Post-vaccine, what I hope that people in agritourism, rural economic development do is focus on promoting their products as related to natural resource recreation, as related to nature trails, as related to arts and cultural trails, because those are considered safe activities in this post-pandemic world and even pre-pandemic world. And so people are gravitating to those activities. I'm not going to kid you, the hardest recovery is going to be found in most of the urban markets because people are a little bit reluctant to get in those highly congregated visitor situations. What I want to end with is that I've been doing agritourism, tourism, general tourism research for many, many years. And thanks for saying young faculty members, because I take that as a compliment. But I've never seen it like this before, where the rural community and the agritourism businesses are really poised for success. Because of the current pandemic, people's motivations, the reluctance to go to those highly congregated communities, cities for travel experiences is now shifting towards experiences in rural America and agritourism related activities where they can feel safe. And therefore, the agritourism professionals, the local farmers, the rural economic development professionals have a chance here to really position their community as something very special in the eyes of the travel and tourism industry. I haven't seen this in my field really ever. And I actually worked in the hotel industry for quite some time. So this is a really unique opportunity for the state of Georgia. And with that, I think that's all I have. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, John. I thought y'all would enjoy hearing from him. I love learning the stuff that he talks about. In your packets, if you're interested in more of the ag forecast content, particularly some of the commodity information, there's a handout there. Also, I gave you an ag snapshot, which you can look in graphic form at some of this and just show the impact of agriculture across the state of Georgia. And so if you've got questions, feel free to follow up. Both of our cards are in there. I just want to end with this quote that I love. I've worked in the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences for over 30 years. And that quote said, "Find meaningful work, work hard at it with people you love. That is success." And for me, that has been success in my career with Extension. And Chairman, if you want us to take some questions, we will, or if you want people to send us their questions, we'll be glad to follow up. Whatever is your pleasure. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, John, for being here. Appreciate all y'all do. Laura, your county agents out there doing this pandemic is just kept on doing what they normally do. And I really appreciate them helping us during this pandemic. And John, you're certainly right. From a personal perspective, our farm certainly saw strong growth in spite of anything I do at our farm as far as agritourism. It's the rest of my team that does it. And so it is, I certainly see it on a personal level, the potential that agritourism has and is growing in our state. And I certainly appreciate y'all's effort to help it, promote it. Our Department of Agriculture and Commissioner Black and his team also have been very influential in it. So appreciate that. Appreciate this update. And I do see several questions here. I'll turn it over. Yes, Representative Matthew, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for that update. And I will lay my bias on the table. Was raised by Georgia 4-H, would not be here without Georgia 4-H, having taught me everything I know. And then, of course, my degrees from the College of Ag. So very much appreciate everything that y'all are doing. And in particular, I just wanted to give a public recognition to all of the work that Extension has been doing during COVID, and in particular, supplementing the efforts that all of our public school teachers and helping lift that burden of our public school districts during COVID. I know a number of my 4-H friends that I grew up with are now 4-H agents and have been following closely their work, in particular in Fulton and DeKalb counties where I represent. So just wanted to publicly thank y'all for everything that you're doing to make sure that our students are continuing to be engaged and learning even through this very difficult, trying time. And probably the most important question that we could possibly answer for all the young Georgians is it possible that we could have 4-H camp this year?
Oh, dear Lord, please. We are planning for 4-H camp for this summer. We already have a plan. It would be reduced numbers. We are following the guidelines from the American Camping Association, as well as we've invested a lot in retrofitting our facilities to be safe. So at present, we're on about Plan Z. We've had so many plans this year, but we are planning that in May, hopefully we will have 4-H camp. We actually moved our project achievements from the winter months to the end of May. So we're hoping we will have them in May, like we did when I was growing up a long time ago. And then we would have camp in June and July. So keep praying.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from our lovely Vice Chair, Representative Holmes.
Good morning, all, and thank you so much, Laura. Appreciate so very much the good job y'all are doing in Extension and the entire College of Agriculture. Kudos to you, and thank you for being here today. It's interesting in tourism. I've been involved with it and promoting it for, seems like forever, at least 25, 30 years. We have a wonderful farmers market downtown on our square in Monticello. University of Georgia Extension Service has helped us tremendously with that. It's been interesting this last year with the pandemic. We are finding that we are having more and more people within the state coming in because they want to do day trips. They don't want to spend a lot of money traveling out of state. They just want, and we're like an hour from Atlanta, Athens, Macon. So it's a great little community right in the center of the state. But we are finding so many more people are interested in coming to our farmers market downtown Monticello. We have it every Saturday from 8 to 12. And our local farmers are doing a better job because they've got more time to spend at home providing, all their products. So I'm very pleased to hear that y'all are working with Department of Economic Development because we work closely with them, and we work so closely with our chambers of commerce, with our downtown development authority, with our economic development authority, all the people that promote our communities. This is an excellent time to do that because people are looking for places closer to home to visit. And they love to find these local farmers markets. And we just appreciate everything. University has always come to our rescue many times. And we're very grateful to the good job y'all are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Echoes on all that. I really like, in fact, I also want to mention, thank you for that little campaign, Protect Your Peach. It's, I think that actually came to Department of Ag, didn't it?
Yes,
Been
actually
picked
a
it up.
former 4-H'er, Erin
Oh.
Burnett, Dowdy White's wife. I'll always call her by her maiden name, but Erin Burnett, a Mitchell County 4-H'er, came up with that. So,
Well, thank you. I hope it helps. Seeing no more questions. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, John,
y'all.
for being here. Very informative. And anyway, this committee can help y'all. We're here to do that. We'll move right on into our agenda. I see on our agenda we got several bills we're going to discuss this morning. I also want to thank our lead counsel, Paul Hidby, for being here this morning. If we have any issues, great resource. Thank you. And my assistant, Lee Goff, back there. Thank you, Lee. She's a great resource for any of y'all on this committee as well, and help. And of course, David Hartman right here next to me, helping run this meeting, and all others. So thank you very much. Big crowd here this morning. I think we have one member, Rebecca Mitchell, on Zoom. So thank you, Representative Mitchell, for being here also this morning, and we won't forget about you. So I'm going to call Representative Corbett. Do you want to talk about your HB 333 any this morning, and give us a little talk about that? Let's see what number. You're okay there.
I don't have a button. Number one.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Dickey. I just previous presentation, I didn't ask a question, but I think Representative Watson or Chairman Watson would love a Protect Our Pepper campaign.
Yeah. Well, you do know that today is National Cabbage Day.
Yeah.
And nobody in this state grows better cabbage than Representative Watson. So we'll just do a shout out right here to the National Cabbage Day. I'm surprised we don't have a box full here on the front.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 336. I got with you last night. I do want to hold this, but just to bring everybody up to speed, this is changing some language to get us in the same language is used in the federal farm bill. This request of Georgia Department of Ag, and then the GBI had some cleanup language they wanted in there on background checks. And that's where I'm having some issues. I need to go back and circle back with the GBI and get some language straight with them on what we're doing here. So just minor changes. I think we can do it in the next meeting, but the changes with the GBI on the background checks, we need to get back and get straight to proceed with the bill. So at this time, I ask that we just hold the bill for today.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Corbett. Appreciate your hard work on this, on hemp. I know it's complicated, lots of pieces to that. So thank you for that. We look forward to getting the bill back for that. Next, my colleague, Representative Washburn, has got a consumer bill, HB 342, that he's going to speak to this morning. And Representative Washburn, why don't you go to the podium? We'll get you mic'd up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I'm here to present House Bill 342. You won't be surprised to hear me say that it is a simple bill, because you hear that often, but it is, and it just amends this code section with this paragraph. A person who does not have a valid license from the Division of Master Plumbers and Journeyman Plumbers shall be prohibited from advertising in any manner that such person is in the business or profession of plumbing as a master plumber or journeyman plumber, unless such person is licensed by the Division of Master Plumbers and Journeyman Plumbers. Now, this is a good bill. It just basically prohibits someone from advertising that they are licensed if they're not. It protects our consumers, And it protects the folks who are in the plumbing business, who go out and get a license and do the education that's required and pay the fees that are required. So it's a simple bill. I think it's a good bill. And Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain any questions that anybody has.
Thank you. I do see one question. Who is 10? Chairman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Would there be reciprocity with other states if somebody got their license in Florida or Carolina and they brought it here?
I do not know the answer to that. There are some reciprocity issues being addressed in some other legislation that I've seen recently, and that has been discussed, but I do not know if this
thank you.
would automatically apply here.
Okay. All right. We have one more question. Representative Donahue.
Thank you very much. Just one question, and it is pretty a simple bill, but I see something that I do know quite a bit about is low voltage contractors. This bringing in, is it a plumber that basically will be dealing with that, or is this like alarm system companies or low voltage contractors? What does that basically fall under?
That is just part of this code section that's being amended, but this is only about plumbers.
Yes.
Licensed journeyman or master plumbers, and
Yes,
it's prohibiting them anyone advertising if they're not.
Okay. And I thank you. We had a problem a few years ago with, different people in low voltage. We were trying to make a lot more education and things that wasn't necessary. And I just want to ask that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question.
We got Chairman Purple. Got a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I had a call yesterday from my district regarding a plumbing issue for a private water system. And the employee they had that was working on the system was sick, and they were having a difficult time finding a plumber to come and work on it, because my understanding there is a shortage of these master plumbers throughout the state. My understanding through our code section is that you cannot own a plumbing business unless you are a master plumber, as certified by the Secretary of State. Journeyman plumbers that have been through the apprenticeship program 3 to 5 years can become a journeyman plumber once they pass the test. But even as a journeyman plumber, you cannot own your own business. You've got to work for another 3 to 5 years and pass another test to be master plumber to own your own business in order to work on these things. My concern is this: if we are placing barriers, increased barriers for people to enter the business in an industry that's already, we don't have enough. We don't have enough plumbers as it is. And so my concern is, if we are adding additional barriers to entry to people to work in plumbing. So let's say I'm 70 years old and I need to replace my toilet at the house, and I'm not able. It's a fairly simple job to do, but I'm not physically able to do that. There currently is no one that I can call other than a master plumber to come in and do that and assist me with a fairly simple task. And my concern would be is if there is a need for such a position. I'm not saying there is, but I can't say, Perkle plumbing helpers, help you replace toilets or sinks. I can't do that with this bill as I understand it. And maybe I'm reading it incorrectly. I know you said it's a simple bill, and there's only 5 lines, so it is fairly short. When it says shall be prohibited from advertising in any manner, and there our concern is in any manner that such person is in the business or profession of plumbing as a master plumber or journeyman plumber. Well, I don't think our regulations will allow us, a journeyman plumber, to actually own his own plumbing business. It has to be a master plumber. So in essence, you can't advertise as a master plumber. So if I have an assistance for doing simple little jobs for elderly people that can't do it, can I not advertise as that? Or can I just not say I'm a master plumber? I understand we want to make sure that we are protecting the industry. But can I not say I'm a plumber helper, or can I just say I'm, Perkle Plumbing, master plumber if I'm not a master plumber? That I understand. The truth in advertising that we did last year, that I'm cool with that. But can I not say I'm any type of a plumber if I'm not a master plumber is my question. Well, that was a long way to get to it. I apologize for that.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. I do not see it that it is keeping anyone from advertising to do plumbing work. It states, I believe, that you can't advertise that you're a master or a journeyman plumber, that you're a licensed
Okay. Well, thank
master or
you.
journeyman plumber. Excuse me. I share your concerns about the whole thing of small business being restricted. And I think that is a topic that, frankly, that the legislature needs to look at to be sure that our small business people can operate freely in a free market. But in this case, this bill just prohibits someone advertising that person is a licensed master or journeyman plumber. And so it is about that, about licensure. I think you can advertise to do plumbing work, but you couldn't have on your truck or in a yellow page ad that you're a master plumber if you don't hold that license from the Secretary of State. That is the way I see the bill.
Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm reading it the same way you are. It's just the advertising piece, and why I think something is really needed in this area, including the electrical area. The pandemic allowed a lot of people to be at home, and a lot of people began to work on their homes. There's an app called Nextdoor that allows plumbers, electricians, handymans, and so forth to advertise to do work. And what we found is a lot of people were advertising as licensed that were not licensed and coming into people's homes over this last year during the pandemic of people trying to get their homes in order while they're at home, and it's caused some issues. So this bill is needed. I don't see a problem with the marketing piece, and I thank you for bringing it forth.
Thank you.
I have another question. Representative Camp.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Representative Washburn and Chairman Dickey. I agree with the comments that were just made by the representative. As a real estate professional, I run into a lot of times people will say, well, I found on social media this person who does plumbing work. And in essence, they are advertising. They don't think it's advertising because they're doing it on social media. But anytime you put yourself out as a professional in a field, there are some liabilities involved. There's a great difference between a master plumber coming and plumbing your house, running your gas lines, putting sewage systems in homes versus someone who may know just a little bit about it. And since a home is typically one's greatest investment, I think that it's very important that there is truth in advertising. And I think this bill differentiates someone who is licensed and has gone through years of school and training to make sure that they do protect our consumers.
Thank you, Representative. I thought it was very interesting. You mentioned gas lines. Often in these questions about this, we think about repairing toilets and leaks under sinks and those kind of things. But when you start talking about gas lines and somebody knowing what they're doing and being licensed to do that correctly, now you're talking about risking the lives of families. And so, again, this is about keeping someone from advertising that they are licensed by the state if they are not. Simply, this is what this paragraph adds. It just prohibits that.
Thank you, Representative. I've got one question. I apologize for hitting it to you right here. Could have done it sooner, but who enforces this and what's the penalty if this occurs?
The Secretary of State oversees this. This is part of the Division of Construction Trades. This is one of those sections. And I assume it is just a civil penalty that someone could sue to get somebody to quit doing it or ask for damages. I assume. I don't really know the answer to whether what a penalty is that's in the code.
Okay, thank you. I see no other questions. I'd entertain a motion if it's the wishes. Yes. One quick, I'm sorry. Sure. 23. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Y'all know, and you've heard it many times, that this governor is very concerned about some of the restrictions or limitations on small businesses. His passion is making Georgia the #1 state for small business. And former Representative Scott Hilton and the Georgians First Commission spent almost an entire year looking through the code section for laws exactly like this. That is one more grain of sand on the beach that could impede a step in the direction of a very small business of less than 3 employees. Most plumbing businesses have an owner and 2 journeymen or just helpers. The Secretary of State already monitors the fact that you have to be a journeyman or a master plumber to even have a license. I would say that we just need to be very cautious about the number of grains of sand that we put on the beach that could prohibit the entry into one of the high demand fields that this state has. I'm not disagreeing that there needs to be truth in advertising, but capitalism and free markets will fix that the first time a water pipe breaks and some fly-by-night has come in there and run a new water line to a refrigerator or ice maker, and the insurance company says, no. These things will work themselves out. And we're growing these code sections that somebody inevitably has to look through to figure out whether or not you can advertise you're a plumber. And so I just say that as a strong word of caution, and appreciate Representative Washburn's intent, but we need to be careful.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think it's pertinent to point out again, this does not say anything about advertising that you're in the plumbing business, that you can fix toilets, that you can fix leaking pipes. It says you cannot advertise that you are a licensed master or journeyman plumber if you do not have the license. And there's a difference here. And I understand I'm on Small Business Development Committee. I have great concerns about us keeping our state as a great state to do business. And I think we do need to look at very carefully. I applaud Scott Hilton's work, and I met with him the other day, actually. But this is about advertising and not advertising that you have a license that you do not have. So I do believe that is different, but I appreciate the representative's comments, and I agree with him about what he's saying. But in this case, this is just about advertising that you have a license if you don't have it.
Okay. What's the wishes of the committee? Got a motion? Do I have a second? Got a second. Any other questions or comments to the author? I think we'll do a voice here. If not, we'll do a roll call. We only have one on Zoom. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. Representative Mitchell, are you there?
Yep, aye.
She has an aye, so motion carries. Thank you, Representative Washburn.
Thank you,
we'll,
Mr. Chairman,
go on the
and thank
rules.
you, members of the committee, for all your questions. I appreciate your scrutiny. Thank you.
We have another bill from Representative Lim, which he's here. And it's a hearing only on this. And so please come to, Representative, come to the podium, Mike, and explain your bill. It would be HB 184. It's in your packet.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, this is House Bill 184. That is LC 364528. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about this issue. So the purpose of this bill is essentially to make misrepresentations about rentals of real property. For example, misrepresentations about the condition or standard of an apartment, as one example under the ambit of the Georgia Fair Business Practices Act. If you don't know what the Fair Business Practices Act does, generally that outlaws unfair or deceptive trade practices. There are a number of different, over 30, in fact, specified types of trade practices, but the general activity or transaction it goes after is consumer transactions, which is partially defined as lease or rental of property, both real or personal, primarily for individual, family, or household purposes. And as part of the violations of that, if you are, quote, representing that goods or services are of a particular standard of those consumer transactions when they are not, that is generally what is prohibited under the FBPA. Despite that, even though in the housing realm, you can imagine some things that would be covered, that is a contractor that makes a false representation about their services, a pest exterminator, to go back to the previous bill, plumbers. Despite that, those that would misrepresent the condition of a rental is not covered under that, and the Attorney General's office is very clear about that. So to me, because the very definition of the FBPA would cover that, and because that is a very serious problem, particularly in my district, and in addition to that, what the FBPA does that it's very special is not only does it provide an access to the Attorney General to make complaints. So again, many types of consumer transactions that are misrepresentations or otherwise problems, you could complain to the AG, and the AG in his discretion could take that up if he decides that there are a certain number of people have passed a threshold to meet that complaint, then he can take that up and do an investigation. That's something that is very special about the FBPA, in addition to the fact that this provides a certain measure of access to justice, because in traditional realms of, say, contract law or tort law, they don't generally provide attorney's fees, whereas the FBPA does. And that's something that's very important to my district, which has a housing stock where over 66% of that housing stock is rentals, whether that is complexes, and a lot of them are even just single family homes. So for my district, this is very much an access to justice regarding a serious problem. And I thank you all for hearing this bill.
Thank you. Any questions on this bill from the committee? Representative Chairman Perkle.
Man, I hate to be, I keep chiming in, but I did have questions. I did read this before, and thank you for listening to my concerns, Representative. There's a couple that I have. One is with respect to rental of real property, beginning on line 12, as a dwelling place for any person to represent that such real property meets standards or has or shall have certain characteristics, does not represent, blah, blah, blah. So my concern is standards is pretty broadly written as standards is not defined. So let's just use perhaps a real life experience. I see a young couple just married, and they're looking at my rental house to lease, and I say it's a pretty good house. It's pretty sound, and you move in and the bedroom window won't open. You know, it's stuck together. Or after it's rained for 3 weeks straight, there is a leak in the roof. And, I'll get it fixed, but, have I violated this? And my concern, secondly, so this is one, and then 1A is this falls under the Fair Business Practices Act. It's not under 44-7, which is the landlord and tenant section of our code. But this is under the Fair Business Practices Act that, and you tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an attorney and I don't know squat. But if I violated this, would I be subject to a $1,000 fine and up to 12 months in prison as a misdemeanor? Is that what the punishment for a violation of the Fair Business Practices Act, which is what this falls under? And there again, we've got some learned people in the room that knows much more than I do. But one is the broadness of the language and how it's not strictly defined as what standards are. And second, that this change is new additions to the Fair Business Practices Act. And I think you mentioned one of the benefits of being there is because it provides special access. And I would say the other side is one of the problems in putting this new language in the Fair Business Practices Act is that it can exacerbate the problems that landlords have in leasing units. And you want to be there again. We've looked at the question I had before is we want to be clear and not deceptive. But I'm wondering if this might be a bridge too far within this code section.
Well, Representative Prickle, first of all, I am an attorney and I barely know anything, so I don't think that's an issue. But to work,
I would certainly disagree with that.
well, to work backwards to your second point, I did want to make clear that this is a civil action only. So it would not be no violation of the Fair Business Practices Act results in and of itself in criminal proceedings, misdemeanor, or any sort of level. So nothing that exists in the FBPA would give rise to a violation in the criminal realm, and I'm certainly not seeking to change that. So I hope that at least answers that second concern. As far as the first concern and the overarching concern, it's a very good point. As an attorney, sometimes I wish to define things more strictly myself, precisely because you do want to be clear, particularly when you're dealing with contracts or contracts adjacent issues. The word standards is in there because that is what is used throughout the FBPA. And part of the reason for that is because you do want to leave some level of generality. Now, I might agree with you in probably many instances that is too broad. That might be an instance of if in any given case, to take the example you said that something is good. Well, that might be put off as too general. In the law, that's seen as too general. Or someone might say something is amazing, it's perfect. In advertising, that's generally seen as fluff. So when you are talking about standards throughout the FBPA, say I took the example of plumbers as something that is already under the ambit of the FBPA. If someone says that this is good plumbing, and then you have all sorts of problems, there would be no cause of action to arise if you just say, oh, this was bad. Any court would throw that out in a motion to dismiss, or I don't want to say any court, but most would. So it does have to have a certain level of specificity in order to get far. And also, to be clear, under the FBPA, one of the limitations is you do need to prove damages. You can't just go around saying that you've been hurt. So under your example, if someone has said that if the landlord did say that the windows work, that there won't be leaks, and that happens, and that causes you damages, and the landlord doesn't repair it, because if the landlord does repair it, then there would be very little recourse for damages. But if the landlord doesn't repair it, then you do have damages. So in my opinion, that very much limits the potential for these wild lawsuits. So that to me is you do have to have specific standards, and the word standards again already exists in the FBPA, and it's there, even though it's broad, to ensure that you do are able to use it from context to context rather than defining standards in plumbing or apartments or as we voted out of the House 2 years, a couple of weeks ago, the issue of consumer transactions with solicitations. Even that, we didn't have specific language about what the standard needs to be met. So it's a balance.
Mr. Chairman, I got to follow up, but since this is hearing only, would it be okay? And I have not done, and I apologize, Representative Lim. We have not met before, and that is my fault. I've been here a while, and would it be okay if I took it offline to talk with him about another concern I had?
That would be very appropriate,
Thank you.
Chairman. And thank you. The hour is getting later, and thank you for bringing this bill, and we'll certainly do more consideration
Thank you.
of this. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We also have a HR 53, but I don't see Representative Schofield here. And actually, that resolution has been heard in another committee as well, too. So I won't go into that. A couple of little housekeeping matters. We do have a couple of commodity commission appointments that for Equine and Georgia Grown Commission. If y'all have some suggestions or want to engage on that, let me know. We'll talk about that at the next meeting. If any of you want to share cell phone numbers, leave off. I'd appreciate having those in case we need to get in touch with anybody on any bills. We have our annual peanut dinner coming up. I think all of you on the committee have gotten invitations to that. Let Lee Goff know. Your spouses or guests or anyone others are certainly welcome. It's a great dinner. Peanut Commission gives us their annual report at that dinner. So looking forward, I think that's March 1st with peanut butter and jelly day, the day of, or the day before. That's Monday, I think, Lee, isn't it? So that's coming up. Put that on your calendar. That's all I have on my agenda. Is there anything else the committee wants to bring? Representative LaRicca, 11:23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess you mentioned housekeeping, so I kind of wanted to mention this. I had noticed it over the last, I guess, couple of weeks. But, Mr. Chairman, is it not true that when we're in face mask, that they must comply with the House decorum rules regarding signage, and that political masks are not allowed? And I just kind of wanted to bring that to the members' attention and make sure that we're just all following the rules.
Thank you for pointing that out. We'll certainly make sure that doesn't happen next time. I appreciate your attendance here and making it a priority to be here at the Ag Committee this morning, Representative LaRicca, and all of y'all. So thank you. With no other things on the agenda, this meeting's adjourned.